Hi, teacher.
Good evening. How you doing, Zubby?
Good, good. How are you, teacher?
Good. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
actually,
Are
I
you
will send that message uh, for you on your phone number.
okay?
Yeah, but I'm still up to now, but you didn't reply that.
I don't know if I saw it. What's going on? Is it personal or what? I'm not sure.
Just for some of my homework I did, but I'm not uh, take any grade from that assignment.
Yes. Yeah. Again, the stuff that's from way back or revisions, it takes me some time. So I
Oh,
will grade, but it takes some time.
it's okay. Okay, I just maybe it's wrong. That's why you didn't take me
No,
any.
no, I try to warn people, right? You can submit homework anytime, but if people don't, if it's, again, it just the stuff that comes in later or assignments from, a month ago, it takes a lot longer for me to grade because I'm always grading something, for this class and other classes that's happening right now too. So it's one of the challenges, the hard parts about no due dates, right?
Okay. Uh,
But if
uh,
you submit it, I'll look at it and you'll get points eventually.
okay. The academic writing project, uh, professor, this is for. Um, this is actually last week I was not in the class, so
Okay.
can you give me a little bit information? What should writing about what, or this is belongs
Well,
to the book?
we talked about it for about 45 minutes. So did you watch the video?
Unfortunately, no, teacher.
Yeah. So watch that. You got to go back and watch the video. That it's
Okay,
all there for you, but you got to watch it.
okay, okay. I will watch it.
I'll talk about it a little bit tonight because I want to explain one thing to people, but it's all there. It's all there for you.
Mhm.
I wonder where everybody is tonight.
Everybody is.
I'm so ready for the end of the semester. I
Me
think every I think everybody is. Yeah, spring break being so late, and of course now we're what, week 4 Ramadan? Almost a month or 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
Mm-hmm. A month, 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But
So
this is
everybody's
the
work.
last week.
Yeah, we're getting ready, right? Next weekend, is that right?
Yeah, this week is.
Do we
I
know
think
is
that's
it May 2nd or 3rd? When is the moon? When is the moon gonna be? When is it time?
yeah, but in calendar when I saw it, maybe Sunday is
Okay,
end
okay.
of the we call it.
Yep,
Yeah,
the
our month.
celebration.
Yeah,
That's great. What happened, Zabi? Did I send out the wrong link or is it really just you and me right now?
it's okay. Maybe the other person is take fast, but they are.
What's going on? This is not common with this class. We'll wait a few minutes and see. I've only got examples tonight too, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are you taking other classes, Zabi?
Unfortunately, no, teacher. Can you
Okay.
uh, give me some information before the other classmates come about uh, the exam of the like? Oh, I forgot. The TOEFL exams. Some people let's take it. Uh, it's hard. What's
Hey, Marcia.
the? Can you give me some information about the
It's
exam of that or?
it's expensive and you can watch all these YouTube videos and buy all these books and The TOEFL is, are you thinking about university, or do you need it for Sac State or UC Davis or something?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can do TOEFL, you can do IELTS. It's just a big test, and there's all these different parts of the test, including a listening and speaking section, and everything is a very specific time, and there's lots of stuff to read. Hey, Asha. So it's a big long test, man. It's a big long test. When are you? I think people need to study for it. The good thing is there are, like, again, you can find YouTube videos. And before I got my master's degree, I taught TOEFL classes, because anybody can teach a TOEFL class, but you need a master's to teach at community college. So you can find stuff, you can find resources and stuff, but it's really hard, and it takes a lot of practice,
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vocabulary, reading and writing. But this class is good. I mean, reading hyperfocus and summary and response is basically all the questions that you answer for TOEFL and IELTS when you're writing is what we're practicing here. So that's good, right? It's like, read this article and then summarize the main idea, or read this article and give your opinion and provide examples. So some of the writing skills that we practice in this class will help you on the TOEFL, but there are also some very specific things for the TOEFL. So Sadaf says hi in the chat. Hey, Sadaf. Zabi was asking about the TOEFL. Has anybody here taken TOEFL? Asha, did you ever take the TOEFL?
No, is that like an English test?
Yeah, it's like a big, government, you can use it for different countries all around the world, but usually if you want to go to university in English, they want the TOEFL or the IELTS test, yeah.
Oh, I see. No, I haven't taken it.
I was only asking because you got a high level, but maybe that's why you don't need to take it.
I'm not sure. Maybe I do. That's an idea.
It's not the most fun thing, but yeah, it's important for people who want to go to university. Yeah, it's important.
I see.
But I'm Googling. If you pass transfer level English, do you need the TOEFL?
Is it TOEFL?
TOEFL. I'll share my screen here and then we'll see. We might have a little baby class, but we'll see what happens. TOEFL. Test of English as a foreign language. Want to attend university abroad. By the way, we've built the world's best online TOEFL course, yeah, exactly. Who should take the TOEFL? Students attending a 2-year community college. Well, we know that's not true. You guys didn't need to take the TOEFL to take this class. I don't think you're going to need the TOEFL, though, Zabi. Especially if you graduate with an associate's.
I just read some some subject majors in there, but it's rated some if a person graduated from other country, but he is in other language without English, but he need to have the TOEFL results.
Those who've graduated from an accredited. Those who have graduated from an accredited high school or four-year college or university where English is the primary language need not submitted English. So that's not super clear to me. Interesting. I don't know. This makes me want to learn more about this. I don't know. Usually this is like if you're a student coming from China, you know, not if you're an immigrant who came to the United States and, you know, you've taken classes at ARC. Usually when I think of the TOEFL, I think of, yeah, like people visiting or who are only in the US for school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try and find out, but it does say includes those US temporary visas, exchange visitors, but see non-immigrant classifications. But you're immigrant. Many, you know, I won't speak for everybody, but a lot of our students at ARC are immigrant visas, not temporary student visas. So I don't know. I'll ask someone about this and maybe I can give you more info next week, Zebby.
Yeah, I appreciate your teacher. Thanks.
I don't think you need it, and hopefully not, because again, like
I hope too, but I
it's a
just can't.
lot of time and money. I don't think so. I'll find out.
Okay.
Yep. All right, we've got some more people here. It's not just three of us. So hi to Lasana and Draga, Vincent, Manisha, Fauzia, Parisa, Draga. Hi, you guys.
Hello, Professor.
Hi there. Manisha says hi in the chat. Hello. All right. Well, yeah, it's 10 minutes. We can get started here. It's great to see you guys. I hope you're all doing well. I was talking to Zabi a little bit before people came in, but I know it's almost time for Eid. More than a month in Ramadan. You're getting there. It's almost time to celebrate. So I hope it's going well. And I hope you're getting ready for the celebration. Here we are, week 14. We're really getting there now. April 26th, 2020. I only got two things to talk about tonight. I want to give you an update about, I'll make my face big here. I want to give you an update about the academic writing project. I made a mistake that I need to fix, and I'll show you what that is. And then I looked at, and if people submitted the response writing lesson, the second response writing practice, I was able to grade those and give some comments and feedback. So I want to show some student examples to hopefully make it more clear what is the difference between a summary and a response, right? Because those are two different things. So that's what I want to do tonight. I want to show you the mistake that I made in the assignment sheet for the academic writing project. And then I want to show some examples of response writing. And then if anybody has a specific question or a specific idea or anything, of course, we can do sort of a question and answer sort of workshop like we have done before. That's fine as well. Okay. So first, I'm just going to show the academic writing project, and then I'll take questions. But first, again, I want to thank Draga. I got to talk to her in basically in office hours, and she got started, and she was saying, Jeff, in section 2, the paraphrase, right? It says it used to say 100 words maximum, and she was sort of saying, Jeff, this was impossible, and I agree. I think I asked you to paraphrase 4 paragraphs. And really, if you're taking 4 paragraphs and making it 100 words, that's a summary. So that was my mistake. I am so sorry. So here I'm saying 400 words maximum. Now, again, if it's a little less, if it's a little more, that's fine, okay? But I do want to make sure that you feel like you have enough words to paraphrase and not just summarize. Because again, using Draga as the example, Draga had a great paragraph, but then I realized, oh, this is just a summary. And she was like, well, you know, I could only write 100 words. So my mistake, that is updated in Canvas now. But again, that's here instead of 100 words maximum, it says 400. If it's less, that's fine. But paraphrase the first 4 paragraphs. Rest is not idleness. And again, that's also updated in our assignments page in Canvas for you here, academic writing project, when you download it right here. My apologies, my apologies. I'm glad you guys still have 2 weeks left, and hopefully That won't throw you off too much. So just to make sure you can see this here. Here we go.
Professor, is it about our final? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, this is the final project. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. The academic writing project. So any questions about that? About did anybody start the project and have questions? Any questions I can answer about the final academic writing project before we get started with our sort of workshop lesson tonight? Here it is. A few people were saying, oh, I wasn't here last week, I have questions. And I say with lots of love and respect, go back and watch the video, right? We talked about it for like 30, 40 minutes yesterday. So, or last week, excuse me. So if you haven't watched last week's video, please do watch it. But if you were here and you still have questions, anybody? Cool. Let's look at my student examples here. I'm going to go into the assignments and look at the response writing task. And then I'm going to show you some examples and talk about, you know, what's good, what's bad, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So as I say here, right? This is lesson 20. Wait a minute, excuse me. I think I'm looking at the wrong one. There we go. Excuse me. So remember, when we're talking about how effective a response is, we need to always go back to the original task, right? What did your teacher ask you to do? If you do need to take the TOEFL exam, you know, they will be very specific about the type of information they want you to write about in the question. So here's the question that I gave you. In chapter 3 of Hyperfocus, Bailey writes that attention without intention is wasted energy, and that the most effective way to become more productive is to choose what you want to accomplish before you begin working. Do you agree or disagree with Bailey's argument? In your response, provide at least one example from your personal life and one quote from the book to support your response. You should use proper MLA in-text citation formatting when you introduce your short quote. Okay, so can someone tell me, what am I asking? Like before we sit down and summarize something, before we sit down and start to respond to a question that a teacher asks you, very important to understand what you read, right? So what am I asking you to do here? What's the idea that I'm asking you to write about? And then what do I want you to do? It was just going to be a Jeff monologue class tonight. Are we very quiet tonight?
Can I try?
Yeah, please.
I think you asked us about if we are agree with Bailey when he said,
yep,
attention without intention is wasting energy.
Good. And is there anything else? Is it just agree or disagree with that one idea, or is there another important idea that you need to agree or disagree with?
We have to provide example.
Yep. But but I want to stick with lesson. So lesson is right here, right? Agree or
yes.
disagree. And here it says attention. So first I definitely need to, when you sit down to write, you need to agree or disagree with this idea. Attention without intention is wasted energy. And there's another idea in this quote, right?
Is that the most effective way to become more productive?
Good. Good. And now I'd say this in this first part of the quote, attention without intention is wasted energy. Lesana, what do you think is the most important key word in that little phrase? Just in this group of words, what's the most important idea in that little quote?
Without
Intention.
Intention.
No,
Yeah,
intention.
without, yeah, exactly. Without intention. Exactly, exactly, exactly. And how about in this second, and I see Fauzia's hand up too. How about in this second quote, way to become more productive, to choose what you want to accomplish before you begin working. Maybe there's not just one important word, but what's one or two, maybe three of the most important words in this second part of the quote, you guys? Fauzia, you want to give one?
Accomplish.
I heard Parisa say productive. I agree. I agree. I think if we have to choose again, now we're kind of doing critical reading skills. Again, we're always using these critical reading skills that we've been practicing for almost 4 months. So we're saying, okay, Jeff's showing me a quote. And in the quote, it says, attention without intention is wasted energy. Okay, so what's the idea there? This is about intentions and why intentions are important. Okay. And the most effective way to become more productive is to choose what you want to accomplish before you begin. Okay, so what's the connection? If I have more intentions, then I can be more productive, or get more done, accomplish before. Okay, so again, that's kind of that example of critical reading. You have to make sure you understand the idea that you're going to agree or disagree. And Liz says accomplish in the chat. I agree. I think productive and accomplish are probably the two most, powerful and interesting words in this part of the quote. Okay. So Lasana's on it for us. And then I want to hear Parisa and Fauzi were talking about the example and what we get after. But our first job in the response is to agree or disagree with these two main ideas. One, intention, working with intention. Two, will make you more productive. You can accomplish more. Right? Now, there's also this idea about wasted energy, and people had good examples there. And again, it's 500 words. We can talk about a few different things, but we want to make sure, okay, so if a person has a response, and in that response, they say, I agree that attention without intention is wasted energy. Well, you're missing the other half, right? You're missing at the beginning. You need to make sure you clearly say agree or disagree with everything here, right? With everything that I'm asking you to respond to. So again, any kind of test, any kind of midterm, any kind of essay that you write at college level, take 5 minutes, take time with the question and make sure you really understand what you're being asked. It is very important. Okay. So then, like Lesana pointed out, do you agree or disagree? And then after that, we've got more instructions, right? So what else do we get? So we need to agree or disagree with this point about intention and more productivity. And then how do we do that? Fauzia, you want to talk about it?
Professor, so the first time I was so confused because it was there was 2 points that I have to explain, and I cannot get any idea to how put these in one introduction. So that's what I did. The first part I just explain about that one, everything, then start again the second part, because I cannot combine these 2 ideas and explain about that.
Well, you're learning. That's okay. Right? I mean, that's fine. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. And how I feel about this. Every time you read that book, every time you read Hyperfocus, you are seeing examples of how to synthesize, if you remember, from one of the college reading activities, the college reading lessons we talked about, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, right? Synthesizing, making creative, original connections between what you read. Now, so Fauzia, if the first time you do this, you sit down and you work really hard and you're like, okay, I'm going to just have one paragraph about one of the ideas and another paragraph about another one, that's a fine. And then maybe I'll say, hey, try to put them together. And it just takes practice, Fauzia. That's okay. That's totally okay. We're learning. And again, like I said, we'll look at some student examples today, but I promise you, the best way to understand how to do this is to read this book and use all of the strategies that we've been talking about to understand how he organizes the ideas, right? How does he present information, right? How does he summarize someone else's ideas? That was part of one one of the other practice lessons that I was looking at, right? When people were talking about he's summarizing the research of another person who looked at setting intentions, right? Okay, so agree or disagree, like Fauzi was saying, okay, then we've got a choice. How do I organize my response? Should I put it all in one paragraph? Should I have two big paragraphs? It's tricky, but make sure, I think maybe just I can say, Parisa said, we need to provide at least one example from your personal life and one quote to support your response, right? So this is what you're being asked to do, right? This is what you're being asked to do when you write your response. State clearly, agree or disagree with intention, wasted energy, becoming more productive and accomplishing more. Use an example from your personal life and use a quote, right? That's your job as the writer for this assignment, okay? Now, before we look at the examples, any questions? Make sense? Make sense? Only 8 people have done this, so I'm like, is it just, are people busy, or or is it unclear what I'm asking? So hopefully, if you haven't done it yet, now it's clear what you're supposed to do, right? But yeah, any questions before we look at the examples? Draga, please.
Hello, Professor Jeff and all other students. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear first 20 minutes. I was driving in the car and I couldn't hear the sound, unfortunately, so I don't know what you were talking about. But I have a question regarding section 2, if I can ask now or maybe later. I don't want to interrupt your conception.
About the grammar writing project, or about the grammar writing, oh my god, about this project, the academic writing project, Draga?
Yes.
Yeah, I talked about it. It's all in the recording. I explained it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I gave you credit. I said, thanks to Draga. Yes, absolutely, yes. And what I'm doing here, Draga, is just sort of doing a very close and critical reading of this prompt of this assignment to make sure people understand, because this is like your rule book, right? Whatever the question in a response is, like I said, whether it's in a midterm or a final exam or an essay, it's like the rules. It's saying, here are the rules for what you should include. Here's what you should do when you're writing. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. All right, then let's look at the example unless. Let's look at it. Yes. Okay, follow along with me. I'm just going to read the whole thing because it's not very, very long. And then we'll talk about it. And of course, don't worry about grammar, right? This is not a grammar class. This is a writing class. So all I want you guys to think about is, did this student do this? Did this student do what the rule book is telling the student to do? What was good, what was effective, and what was not very effective yet? Okay, so here we go. I agree with Bailey when he implies that attention without intention is wasted energy, and that the most effective way to become more productive is to choose what you want to accomplish before you begin working. Everyone should choose their intention, which is that the most important tasks are necessary and purposeful quadrants. However, unnecessary and habitual tasks are more attractive for our mind. We can prevent our mind from occupying unnecessary tasks and distractions. In my opinion, Bailey's suggestions have 3 main points to keep our attention from distractions. First one is to start each day by choosing 3 things we want to have accomplished by the end of the day. If people force themselves to pick 3 main intentions at the start of each day, they will accomplish them completely and productively at the end of the day. I believe it is the best way to keep our attention on the most important things that we choose for our intentions throughout the day. For example, I choose 2 or 3 intentions to accomplish every day. It prevents my mind from wandering and distraction. Of course, It makes me keep 2 or 3 tasks on my mind, so it will never overflow in my mind because I point out my path during the day. When people consider many tasks in their attentional space, they don't have sufficient space in their mind to focus. But when they choose 2 or 3 tasks in their intentions, they will get their tasks productive and effectively. The second aspect is to set intention for the most consequential tasks. Certainly, the most important tasks that people consider is in their list are the greatest and positive things. As I read in Hyperfocus book, Bailey states that when deciding what to do, instead of considering just the immediate consequence of an activity, also consider the second and third consequences. For instance, I consider my intentions for today 3 things. 1 is a complex task and 2 of them are habitual tasks. At the first step, I categorize my tasks based on their importance and productivity. Of course, I will do the most important and necessary work first, which is my response writing, and then I will do the other tasks in order. Choosing 2 or 3 daily intentions, categorizing the consequential tasks, and the last one is to set the hourly awareness chime. These aspects prevent us from distractions, and we can keep our focus in our attentional space based on our intentions. It can also prevent us from occupying our attentional space and focusing on what is important and what consequential things we have to do. Also, Bailey says the important thing is that you are regularly checking what is occupying your attentional space. When people set an hourly timer in their phone or smartphone, it helps them to keep their attention from wandering, and it will be more productive for their focusing throughout the day. For example, when I read the Hyperfocus book, I set my smartphone to 10 minutes for the first time. Honestly, this method makes me focus more on reading better to comprehension. In conclusion, attention without intention is a waste of our time, and everyone should choose their way before starting to work. This attention is required to 3 important quadrants, which are to choose the least task, do the most valuable things first, and set an alarm in our devices to prevent yourself from distracting and wasting time. Okay, what do we think? What was good? What could be improved? What'd you notice? You're gonna hear my opinion, of course, but first I want to hear yours. Did this student answer the prompt? You need to see it again.
Yes.
Here's just the introduction in the beginning of the first paragraph.
For me, I agree. Yeah, because he talked about both ways. He said he'd agree with Bailey.
Yep.
When he said attention without intention is wasted energy. And the most effective way to become more productive is to choose what you want to accomplish before you begin working.
Good. I do think this student did a good job using the structure we've been talking about. The very first sentence, we understand if agree or disagree, and they do include the most important ideas from the quote. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if we keep going though, Lawson, now remember, I've said this many, many times. After we say agree or disagree, the most effective type of introduction here is to then clearly say why, right? I agree because, or I disagree because, or I kind of agree, but I disagree with this idea, right? Now, does this author, does this student give a specific reason why they agree in the introduction?
For me, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. I think what we see here is summarizing the main ideas, doing a good job explaining the main ideas, but this author is not saying their own personal reasons yet, right? So we get, I agree, and then this student just uses the quote, fine, that's appropriate. Everyone should choose their intention, which is that the most important tasks are necessary and purposeful quadrants. Okay, I read the book. I understand this person's talking about the 4 types of tasks. That's okay. But again, to me, that feels a little bit more like a summary of other ideas in the book. This isn't I agree because, or I disagree because, or in my personal experience, right? This is an idea from a different part of the book. And if we continue, however, unnecessary and habitual tasks are more attractive for our mind. We can prevent our mind from occupying unnecessary tasks and distractions. Again, I think this sentence is kind of like a paraphrase of what this student already quoted. This is the same idea, right? Like if you focus with intention, you get more done. If you don't focus on intention, you do unnecessary tasks, you do distracting work, you do things that don't, are not very productive, right? And so I'd say here, this is more summaries. This is kind of more summaries and repeating the main idea. And here's where this student really starts to make the biggest mistake, even though this is great writing, as I'm going to say here, I'll show you the examples, but it's not really response writing. Because here we see, in my opinion, Bailey's suggestions have 3 main points to keep our attentions from distractions. And here's where I'll say something like, right? This is, I want to make sure you guys understand this. So if you don't, stop me and let's talk about it. But this is a big issue with this example. So here, this sentence, I'd say, okay, but you need to provide reasons why you agree with Bailey's argument. You do not need to provide 3 different ways that Bailey suggests how to focus, right? If I have an essay that says, Bailey suggests 3 great ways to focus with good intentions. Well, that's great, but that's a summary. That's not a response, right? The thesis, the argument, the main idea in your response should be the reasons you personally agree or disagree with whatever you're responding to. And that's a big difference, right? That is a really big difference. Does that make sense? And if not, we should stop and talk about it. Fauzi gives a thumbs up. Okay, I'll take it. Lessana, what do you think?
Yes, I think if we look at what he wrote in the last sentence, it means he's doing another work than the work he used to get done. Because for me, I think this one is not related to what the author says in the first sentence.
Exactly. It's again, as we'll see, I'll continue here and then Sadaf, I see your hand. This student did such a good job reading the text and understanding what Bailey wrote. But remember, that is like a summary. When you say, hey, Bailey says the 3 best ways, now I'll make my face big and then I'll go back. There's a big difference, and I'll keep trying to make the example more clear. There's a big difference between saying, I totally agree with Bailey because working with stronger intentions allowed me to get my homework done faster and spend more time with my family. That's a response, right? But Bailey summarizes the 3 best ways to set better intentions. That's not a response, right? That's just a summary of what Bailey says in the book. And again, you're going to summarize, but why I'm asking you to practice this so much is so that you guys understand the difference between these two types of writing, because you need them both in college so much, right? So again, I totally agree with Bailey, because when I set stronger intentions, I read more pages in my book and got to spend more time with my family. Response. In chapter 3, Bailey proposes 3 different ways to set better intentions. Summary. Sadaf, please.
Yes, Professor. Based on your explanation, we cannot exactly mention the 3 types of intention that Bailey mentioned in the book, right?
You might, you can, but again, the example I always give here is, if this is not a perfect metaphor, I'm sorry, but I think I've done this before. I talk about emphasis, right? I talk about emphasis and what you put, where you put your focus and all that stuff. My metaphor for this is always like a spotlight stage, right? If you think about a spotlight, this is none of these. Oh, this is shopping, not images, excuse me. I'm not shopping, I just want to show an image, right? If you think about a picture like this, not great, hold on. Right. This is a spotlight, right? So again, when you're doing a response, you can talk about the 3, maybe the 3 ways, but they cannot be what the light is on, right? They might be over here, right? But the thing you give the spotlight to, the thing you give the most attention to, has to be your personal response and evidence to support your response. I feel like in this example, the student is putting the spotlight on the 3 ways to set better intentions, right? But that's a summary and that's not a response. Does that make sense?
Yes, Professor. Thank you.
Yeah. Where do you give your focus, right? What are you focusing on? That's the thing I'm trying to make sure is a little bit more clear for you guys. Other questions? And we'll really see this in the next paragraph, I think. Cool. Let's look at the next one. So what do I mean? What's the difference? Well, again, and again, I'll say this is excellent writing. The student used a great structure, right? The thesis statement talks about 3 main points, and each topic sentence is one of those points, right? And then there's a nice little conclusion paragraph. So this is like probably a student who got a perfect A grade in 315. Fantastic 5-paragraph essay. Yes, yes, yes. But remember, if you write a summary, when your teacher asks for a response, this is a problem. So let's continue. So first one is to start each day by choosing 3 things we want to have accomplished by the end of the day. If people force themselves to pick 3 main intentions at the start of each day, they will accomplish them completely and productively at the end of the day. I believe it is the best way to keep our intentions on the most important things we choose for our intentions throughout the day. So now again, we've got I believe, okay. But remember, is there a why or because? Well, let's see. For example, I choose 2 or 3 intentions to accomplish every day. It prevents my mind from wandering and distraction. Is this a clear and specific example, my friends?
No.
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 No. This is just like, if someone says, give me an example of 3 things you do every day to work hard, you're like, well, every day I do 3 things to work hard. And it's like, that's not an example, you know? So again, here I'd put something like, oh, I need to make sure I save this comment. I can say something like, this is too general. Please provide clear and specific examples for why you agree, right? So we could, I mean, we could come up with a million different examples, right? Like spend more time reading, more time doing homework, more time playing with my kids, more time practicing English, more time cooking, more time praying, more time right? We could go down the long list of things that anybody could do in their life, but this is not a specific example. And because this person says, I believe it is the best way, and then doesn't give a very clear example, it just doesn't feel like a response, right? It just feels like a really nice summary. And we continue. Of course, it makes me keep 2 or 3 tasks in my mind, so it will never overflow in my mind because I point out my path during the day. When people consider many tasks in their attentional space, they don't have sufficient space in their minds to focus. But when they choose 2 or 3 tasks in their intentions, they will get their tasks productive and effectively. I'd say again, I'll make a comment here. This is perfect summarizing, but this is supposed to be a response essay. Is the difference between summary and response making more sense? I really hope so. And if it's not, stop me. Questions before we look at the examples? Keep going. All right, paragraph number 2. It's awfully quiet out there tonight. Okay, the second aspect is to set intentions for the most consequential tasks. Now, again, I think this is great, right? Like, I think that this student, again, clearly understood what they read, because this idea about the most consequential, the most important tasks, it's a really important idea, right? It is, but let's see if they're responding or summarizing. Certainly, the most important tasks that people consider in their list are the greatest and positive things. As I read in Hyperfocus book, Bailey states that when deciding what to do, instead of considering just the immediate consequence of an activity, also consider the second and third consequences. So again, here I could say something like, great job, good quote. So again, good job. This student did so many things well here, right? But then let's see, how do they connect their own ideas to the quote? Well, let's look. For instance, I consider my intentions for today 3 things. 1 is a complex task, and 2 of them are habitual tasks. At the first step, I categorize my tasks based on their importance and productivity. Of course, I will do the most important and necessary work first, which is my response writing, and then I will do the other tasks in order. Okay, first time I'm gonna say, and you guys know how I do this, yay, a real personal example. I like it. But this sentence is, if we look down at the bottom, 125 words, right down here at the bottom. My response writing is 3. Only 3 out of the 125 words are actually about a personal example. The rest are really just summarizing, right? So again, I think this paragraph is too much summarizing, not enough reason why we agree or disagree. We do get some examples in the 3rd paragraph here. Well, the fourth paragraph. Next one, choosing 2 or 3 daily intentions, categorizing the consequential tasks. So again, this is perfect 5-paragraph essay writing, by the way. Choosing 2 or 3 daily intentions, that was body paragraph 1. Categorizing the consequential tasks, body paragraph 2. And the last one, body paragraph 3, is set the hourly awareness chime. These aspects prevent us from distractions, and we can keep our focus in our attentional space based on our intentions. It can also prevent us from occupying our attentional space and focusing on what is important and what consequential things we have to do. Also, Bailey says, the important thing is that you're regularly checking what is occupying your attentional space. I love this. Great quote again. And here we get a little more example. When people set an hourly timer in their phone or smartphone, it helps them to keep their attention from wandering, and it will be more productive for their focusing throughout the day. Summary, right? This is absolutely summary of the main idea of the quote. Then we do get an example. For example, when I read the Hyperfocus book, I set my smartphone to 10 minutes for the first time. Honestly, this method makes me focus more on reading better to comprehension. And again, I'd say, yay, 2 whole sentences, right? All right, clear, specific example from your own life. So this is good. But you can see, right? It's way out of balance. It's all summary and no personal response, right? I'd say this is probably 90% a summary and only 10% a response. And then a great little conclusion to the summary. In conclusion, attention without intention is a waste of our time, and everyone should choose their way before starting to work. This attention is required to 3 important quadrants, which are to choose the least task, do the most valuable things first, and set an alarm in our devices to prevent yourself from distractions and wasting time. Again, nice job doing a conclusion, summarizing the 3 body paragraphs, but not a response. Questions, ideas? Does that make sense, what I'm saying? You know me, I'll still give this student a B, and then you can do it again and get an A if you want. In another class, in a history class or another class, the teacher might say, you didn't answer my question. You know, this is a 0. Why didn't you answer my question? So again, I'm not trying to scare you or give you bad grades. I'm just trying to make sure you are ready for your future classes. Fauzia, I see your hand.
So I just have a suggestion for this student. So I need your idea. So
Sure.
what if instead of pronoun, I'm talking about the pronoun. So if instead of we, this student use I, do you think it will be a little close to the
Yes.
response?
Yes, and in fact, I'm going to show you. I do think, again, I'm being kind of, I think I've said this a couple times, right? But I'm not being crazy about it when I'm grading. In a summary, do not use first or second person, right? In a response like this, the second person, you, our, I think you're right, Fauzia. I think it's better without you or our. There were a couple students who used you, and then I put it in red boxes to say, hey, you know, change this. Maybe you could get away with 1 or 2, but I think you're right. Now, again, it's not like a always rule, like I've taught you, right? Summaries, third person only. So there's no always rule for in a response, never say you. It's not quite like that, but I do think you're right, Fauzia. If a student doesn't say you, that gives them the chance to say more about I, me, right? And again, that's the job for this assignment, right? It's talk about my experience, my opinions, my beliefs. So I think I think that's a very intelligent point, Fauzia, is the less you use you, the more you can use I, me, mine. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, Professor, I use we. That's why I just mentioned.
That's well, and again, we is okay, right? We is first person plural, right? I is singular and we is first person. So I think we is better than you and your, definitely, right? I think we and our, tricky. But if you're talking about if you're talking about your family or something, right? My whole family, we do this, our family, okay. But again, the job here in the response is, as you know, in the instructions, right? I want to make sure I get the words right. In your response, provide at least 1 example from your personal life, right? So again, the instructions are really clear here. The way you want to talk about I and me and we is about your own personal examples that support your opinions, right? Yeah. We and our is, you know, it's tricky. It's all good pronoun practice. That's why, again, for grammar, for the purposes of grammar, it's still good. Everything we're doing here with these two skills is helping. Final project. Marcia is connecting this to the final project, section 4, which is the response writing. Do we need to have an introduction, body, and conclusion paragraph for each section and post it in 4 different files? No, no, no. Please, Marcia is asking, should the academic writing project be 4 different files? No, you can put it all in one big document. In fact, in the structure section here, right, I said, what? You do not need to write a traditional introduction or conclusion. Instead, you should use headers just like the headers that Bailey used in Hyperfocus, right? So again, things I want you to practice. So you can just have, your document can start, right? The 3 styles of scatter focus, or if you want to say summary, okay. And then you can have a new section header here, right? Just like this. So you don't need to have 4 different documents. And then maybe at the end of class tonight, we can go sort of word for word and look at this example here to make sure Marcia's question about, okay, how should I think about organizing this section of the essay? We could do that at the end. Yeah, we could talk about it at the end. I want to show you a successful response though first. Fauzia Draga, please. Yes, questions.
Okay, Professor. Can you explain when you say to use headers? Can you please explain more clear what you mean?
Yes.
That because I'm not sure what you think about. I would like not to make mistake to understand.
Yeah, this is a header, right? This is its own section. This is a header. It's in bold, right? It's different. If we look at the entire Amazon, I think again I've showed this a couple different times. If you just look at what is going on there, hold on. Okay. Ay, Diosito Santo, hold on. It just means it doesn't have to look like a 5-paragraph essay, right? You organize each section and you put a header, like it gets its own, like a title, right? But it's not in the middle of the page, it's off to the left of the page. The whole book, here's a header, but it's put in the center, sleep. This section is about sleep. Even inside of each sections, let me find another one. Connecting even more dots. Okay, that's the title for this section. And then I've got a little header here, right? It's its own line. And then he jumps down to the next section. Header number 1, okay, these 2 paragraphs are all about scatter your attention in a rich environment. Okay, look, another header in a bullet oh, thank you, Asha.
I don't see anything.
That's what Asha was saying. I stopped sharing. It's back. So again, here this is in Hyperfocus, right? Here's the title for this section of. So again, chapters get broken up into different sections and headers. Chapter 8 says connecting dots. Okay, that's the title of the chapter. Okay, this section he gives a title, or again, is this a header? Is this a title? Whatever. Becoming more creative. That's in the middle of the page. Here he also puts insight triggers in the middle. But notice then he does connecting even more dots and then a header that says 1, scatter your attention in a rich environment. Well, okay, that means these 2 paragraphs will go back up to this header. Or 2, write out the problems you're trying to crack. So sometimes he uses bullet points or numbered lists as headers. Sometimes, let me find another example of this. Sometimes he'll do a header like this, right? No 2 pieces of information are created equal. And then he just starts the paragraph after that, and here it's indented. So this book is full of different examples for how to use headers. So again, the book is your guide for the structure, right? I've tried to say that lots of times. If you like one of these in the middle, great, do one in the middle. If you like putting one, here is an example of a header that's off over here, right? Problem crunching mode, habitual mode, capture mode. So all these are headers. And again, even in the document that I give you here, right, you guys, this is a header. right? It means everything, it's in bold too, right? Everything under this line is about section 1. Section 2, everything under this line is all about section 2. Well, here's a header with some about a new topic, right? So that's what a header is, Draga. Yes, more questions. Fausia, Draga?
I'm sorry, I was talking, I was muted. So I'm wondering if we can write in bold.
Yes, I mean, yes, that you kind of have to do, right? If you look at what's consistent for all of these examples, if you like it in the middle, okay, well that's in the middle and it's bold. Here there's no number, but it's also bold. It's over on the left-hand side of the page. So yeah, I think your headers could, sometimes I've seen students do this underline, okay, bold, cool, bullet points, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4 lists. Great. Remember, all the way back to the very beginning of the semester when we watched the critical reading skills video, one of the first thing we talked about, right, is like look for lists, look for bullet points, look for those section headers, right? So whatever style you like and want to choose, go for it. Yeah, but bold is a very common one, Draga. Yeah.
Yeah, so just for headers, I mean titles.
Correct.
And we can use also bullets.
Yep, bullets, numbers. Again, like, yeah, yes. Fausia, is that a new question or your same hand?
So Professor, one more question. Is it for any summarize, response, and paraphrase for all 3, or for specific one?
Ask it again. I'm not sure. I don't think I understand yet.
Yeah. So can we use bullets, titles in bold, numbers in any of those writings, like summarize, paraphrase, and response writing, or only for one of them specifically you talk about maybe?
I mean, like, well, you mean so. So you mean something like this? Like, imagine that this is your header, right?
Yes.
So you're saying, okay, you want to do a bullet point here, but then not for a paraphrase. Something like this. I'd say if you're going to use bullet points, do it for all 4. I mean, that looks a little weird to me, but I'm not picky. I'd rather you try stuff out and practice with this formatting stuff. You're going to practice it more in 340. I think this looks weird. What's the third section is collecting more valuable dots. I mean, I think this looks weird, but whatever, right? So something like this, right? I mean, like what it just looks like on the page. Of course, I'm just copying and pasting stuff, right? But like, this is all I mean by headers, right? Like the header is telling the reader, okay, like this section is your summary of the 3 styles of scatter focus. Oh, okay, here, this is the rest is not idleness paraphrase, right? So I think if you're going to do numbers, it's probably best to do numbers all the way down. So this would be 2. And this is 1, or just do all bullet points. But like I said, my goal here is to have you practice formatting headers, not to make you only do it one way. That's what 340 is for, Does that make sense, Draga?
Yes, and also, do we need to write section 1, 2, 3? And do we need to write academic writing project, like final academic writing project on the top?
You can. I mean, I think it should have a title. If you want to just call it academic writing project, fine. I mean, again, like the title and all that stuff is you get to choose, right? I mean, like if you just want to copy and paste section 1, summarize, okay, I think that's a little boring, but you know, it's your you can choose the style here. So again, like I said, look at the book, like look how he does it and see if that gives you some inspiration for how you want to present it to the reader.
Okay, I have one quick question. I don't know if I will have enough opportunity to ask you later. What is the minimum, I'm sorry for asking you that, for paraphrase section 2, because it's very short, 4-paragraph text, and I think 400 words is, it seems to me, too many words. It says maximum, but what would be minimum? I don't want to.
I don't have one. So as long as you feel like you've got all of the ideas in all of the paragraphs, you're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Fauzia, new question?
No question, Professor. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
So, Professor, one more question.
Sure.
Is it important to write conclusion at the end of every section? No.
You can't, right? I mean, you can't write a conclusion in section 2. I mean, there's no conclusion for you to paraphrase. So, you know, for example, you definitely can't have a conclusion. You know, in part, not just Draga, of course, but for everybody. I mean, why I wanted to show you that first student example, right, is just again, more and more you guys can get more comfortable with letting go of the 5-paragraph essay is the only way to write, right? That's part of the challenge of this assignment, right? So, you know, you might briefly summarize what you wrote about in section 1, right? Kind of like this student has, if I go back to, right, this student has, let's see, 56 words. That's a nice short summary of the ideas that they've already summarized. So maybe you've got something like this in section 1 and section 3, but I mean, like I said, in section 2, there's nothing for you to paraphrase. There's no conclusion because there's no conclusion paragraph that I'm asking you to paraphrase, you know. And here in the response writing, as we'll see in the example next, you know, you can have, again, a nice few sentences, but you don't need like a traditional conclusion paragraph, you know? Anybody else before we look at the example number 2 for a very successful example of response writing? Let's go. No, I already did that one. There it is. Nope. Nope. Haha. Okay. I don't know why all the red is on here. It's driving me nuts. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know how to get rid of it. Doesn't matter. Some weird formatting stuff. Okay. Response writing. Here we go. Again, looking at agree or disagree. Here's our prompt, just like we looked at last time, right? Do you agree or disagree? In your response, provide at least one example and one quote from the book to support your response. All right. I agree with author Chris Bailey when he says that attention without intention is a waste of energy. I also believe that before doing something, we need to direct attention and form an intention. After all, according to Bailey, having formulated a clear intention, we can then decide how to spend time focus on the task, and effectively accomplish it. As Bailey notes, the best way to become more productive is to choose what we want to achieve before we start working. Another point that the author makes, which I totally agree with, is that when forming intentions, it is important to remember that not all work tasks are equal. Some tasks are very important and require a lot of attention. Others can be done on autopilot mode because they are often repeated or do not require a lot of focus. If people do not set intentions for attention-consuming tasks, then the autopilot mode is turned on. This is not bad, but it does not always bring results. So I completely agree with Bailey when he argues that if people want to be as productive as possible, then they must first prioritize their goals and then set clear and specific intentions. I'll read the whole thing and then we'll talk about it. On my personal experience, I am convinced that setting strong intentions definitely leads to more productivity. Thanks to the fact that I have been meditating while standing for many years, it is not difficult for me to concentrate on something without becoming distracted. In fact, I can spend about an hour in meditation, but I have never tried to meditate in an active form on solving certain problems. However, after reading the book Hyperfocus, I began to apply skills from the book in my life. For example, I set 3 tasks at the beginning of the day, just as Bailey recommended to do. For example, I set tasks in one day: fall asleep, do all the homework, clean the house. These were my intentions for the day. I was very surprised that I was able to hold attention on these tasks during the day. And I felt like my brain really looked for opportunities to perform these tasks. At the end of the day, I was surprised that everything was done without much effort and labor. And when I realized this fact, I felt an incredible surge of strength and a feeling of happiness and satisfaction. Another instance of my experience working with hyperfocus and strong intentions happened with a particular task that required a lot of my focus and attention. I often have to give my full attention to my 2-year-old daughter, who requires constant attention, so it can be difficult to focus on complex or difficult tasks during the day. Such tasks often seem almost impossible. However, one day, when it was already impossible to put it off until later, I set myself the intention that today I would read a chapter for 2 hours without being distracted, and then I would write a draft version of the response. I knew that this would be a big and complex task, and it would take up a lot of my attentional space. So I thought it was very important to set a clear and specific intention. And I was shocked, but I did it. Of course, during the execution of the task, several times I caught myself thinking about other distracting thoughts, but nevertheless, I just kept putting my mind back on the task. I did not condemn myself, but simply calmly accepted this fact, and attention automatically returned to the task. I think that this is the meta-awareness which Bailey writes about in Hyperfocus. Of course, applying these methods regularly in life is also a certain skill, but it is so effective that I personally want to make it a habit. For these reasons, I totally agree with Bailey's argument that setting stronger intentions, especially for very complex tasks, and can make people more productive and happy. So some grammar stuff, as always, right? We know there's some grammar problems. Okay, but do we see the difference? Can anyone talk about, like, what do you notice? What's the difference between the first example and this example?
This has more real examples, specific and real examples.
Yeah. And if you think about how much, Liz, like, are the examples like a little part of the essay, half of the essay, most of the essay? What do you think?
Most of the essay.
It's like a half of the essay, or maybe more, because all the time it's talking about how he took the ideas from the author and do different things.
Yep. I think it's at least half, right? I mean, there's no really
Yeah,
personal
half.
examples in the introduction. The introduction is very long. So again, maybe there's some summarizing there. That's okay. But I think these two paragraphs, right? Paragraph number 2 and paragraph number 3 are almost all personal examples, right? And again, the thing that this student does very successfully, even though there are problems, right? There's not a quote in here, right? This student didn't include a quote from the book. They talk about stuff and summarize stuff, but one thing I love is how when they are giving those examples, they keep talking about ideas from the book, right? So at the end of paragraph 2, for example, they're talking about their own experience, about my mind kept walking away, right? But I did not condemn myself, simply calmly accepted this fact and attention automatically returned to the task. And then they finish by repeating or connecting back to an idea from the book. I think that this is the meta-awareness which Bailey writes about in Hyperfocus, right? So those are two big strengths of this essay, is in these 2 paragraphs where there are so many great personal experiences, the student does keep connecting back to main ideas from this chapter. It would be even better, right, with a quote, just like the instructions say, but I still think, I hope that you guys agree, the relationship between these personal examples and the ideas from the text, to me, is very clear, right? And that's what you want. You want to make sure that you choose clear examples that prove or give good evidence for the ideas from the book, right? Yeah, so Liz was saying at least half. Draga was sort of saying most of this essay feels like the students' personal examples. What else did we notice about this essay? Are the examples vague and general, or are they very specific?
Specific.
And what were they?
He said like the author said this and I did this.
What was it? Say one more time, Liz.
I think there are specific examples because it says like I choose to do 3 things during the day, so
Good.
I was doing the things.
And do you remember, Liz, or does anybody remember? She says what those 3 things are. Does anybody remember what the 3 things are without it on the screen? Does anybody remember?
I
In the
remember,
house.
I remember cleaning the house.
Good. Clean the house.
Yeah,
Clean the house is one of them.
Doing the homework, I think
Yep,
so.
doing homework. And does anybody else remember number 3? I'll put it on the screen now.
No.
You know this is a mom, right? You know that this is a mom when she has to make this example. She has to remember to, for example, I set these tasks: fall asleep, do the homework, clean the house.
Okay.
So clean the house. And again, I love it, right? So even though we didn't remember all 3 of them, when an author includes, instead of saying, I set 3 tasks every day, it's like, okay, I set 3 tasks every day. Yesterday, it was clean the house, fall asleep, do the homework. That really sticks in our mind, right? So I'm happy that we remembered even 2 of them, right? We remembered even 2 of them. So in the first paragraph, we get specific, clear examples of the 3 tasks. Paragraph number 2, right, is all about what? Well, what about paragraph number 2? Does anybody remember the example in paragraph 2?
Something about the 2.5 years old baby.
Yes, the baby is another great example, right? So we get this connection to another idea in Bailey's. This is kind of part 2 of the Bailey quote, right? About the most important tasks. So another instant of my experience working with hyperfocus and strong intentions happened with a particular task that required a lot of my focus and attention. I often have to give my full attention to my 2-year-old daughter who requires constant attention, so it can be difficult to focus on complex or difficult tasks during the day, right? Such tasks can often seem impossible. And then she says she would read a chapter for 2 hours and write a draft version. So again, I love this, you guys, like she's comparing these 2 examples of, wow, okay, taking care of my baby, that takes all my attention. Also, reading this chapter and writing the response took all my attention. So I had to kind of, make a plan, make an intention. So in this paragraph, we even get kind of like two very specific personal examples that, again, directly connect to the ideas in the original Bailey quote. And that's the goal, right? So even though there are problems here, even though there's some big grammar, there's some sentence structure problems, right? And again, the student should clearly include one in-text citation. But this example really very clearly followed the rules that I ask in the question, in the initial question. Good. What else do you guys notice, or what sticks out to you guys? Anything else you notice about this example essay?
I think that
Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
the introduction, well, is long, but all the time is talking about that it's agree with the ideas of Chris Bailey.
Yep.
And it says, she said why.
You're right. And I think she could say why even better. But one thing that she does really well is notice. I agree. I totally agree. We know that this can't just be summarizing, right? But because they keep saying, this author keeps saying the things that they agree with, right? I totally agree with is that when formatting intentions, it's important to remember that not all work tasks are equal. So I completely agree when he argues that if people want to be as productive, then they must prioritize their goals, right? She keeps saying, I do think, like I said, Liz, I think she could say why a little bit better, but at the very least, she keeps saying what she agrees with, right? Over and over. I agree with this. I agree with that. I agree with Bailey when he says this, right? And that's, again, another really effective way to make sure that you are focused on responding to a specific idea instead of just summarizing the main idea, right? Yeah. So I like that, Liz. I do think so. I do think so. Yeah, right. Notice they say, I agree 3 times in here. Now, you might not have to do that for every response, but it does, again, it makes the intention really clear.
So in summarize, we are not allowed to talk about our opinion at all. We just write on different way with our words what we read. Yeah.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, but when we write response, then we have to tell our opinion through our examples, personal examples.
Big time. Yep, you got it, Draga.
It's very important to understand and always keep in mind what we can do in one way of writing and what in another one.
True. I agree. I agree. Cool. I want to look at the conclusion too. And again, because you'll notice at the end, even the final sentence, right? Of course, applying these methods regularly in life is also a certain skill, but it is so effective that I personally want to make it a habit for these reasons. So this is like Liz was saying, right? She explains why. Well, in a perfect introduction, you could say, I agree because, okay, but she does do this at the end, right? So for these reasons, well, what reasons? Well, all the reasons that she just wrote about, above. So for these reasons, I totally agree with Bailey's argument that setting stronger intentions, especially for very complex tasks, can make people more productive and happy. So again, even though we don't get that I agree because in the introduction, we do get it by the end of the essay. So it works. That works for me. That works for me. Yeah. Ideas, questions, make sense? Too much? Not enough?
Professor, are these two essays from two people did from final writing?
No, they're from this class. These are literally examples from lesson 19.
From this class? I don't remember if I did it.
I think you did. I think I graded it. I think I graded it yesterday.
I remember that I did all of them, but I don't remember that I was talking about that. Maybe I did all wrong. Who knows?
No, it's a great question from Draga. No, again, that's why I'm having you do these practice before the final project, right? I mean, like, I want you to get more experience. Like Fauzi was saying, hey, it's the first time I did this. Of course, right? Absolutely. So the goal is not to be perfect, right? The goal is to have the experience trying to write a pure only response essay, and then we can look at it together, right? And understand, okay, this was good, this we could change, this was really effective, whatever. So I think you did though, Draga. But again, only eight students. So if you waited, you've got no excuse now. We've gone through lots of examples. So do that practice before you do it in your academic essay, right? The academic project's worth 300 points. This is only worth 20. So get some good practice, you know? Oh yeah, I'll share my screen again. So just so like Draga was saying, right? This is lesson 19. This is, again, literally from this class. So these two examples are from here, lesson 19, response writing 2. Questions or like Q&A workshop. I think my idea here is, these are the only two examples I wanted to show you today. Then I since it came up, I think Marzia was asking about, we could take a closer look at section 4 of the academic writing project to make sure it's very clear you know what I'm asking you to do for that section of the project. But before we do that, any examples, any questions about these two examples? Is the difference between summary and response more clear now? Any questions you have, I would love to answer.
Yes.
Yes, please.
My question is about the summary.
Okay.
Yes. When we have to make the number of the page, to put the number of the page, is it when we exactly say what the author says in the original text, or when we use an idea from the original text? I'm a little bit confused. I don't know how.
Both. The answer is both, right? So citation, again, we've talked about citation in this class a few different ways, but the short answer, Lasana, is if it's not your own idea, if you're summarizing or paraphrasing and it's not your idea, you've got to at least just include the page number, right? Now, if you have a direct quote, right? If you have, I'll share, I am sharing my screen, right? Here is a direct quote, right? I'll put this in a document. Right, again, so that was a weakness of this essay. This student had lots of examples of ideas that were from the book, but didn't put a page number, right? So. Right. So, for example, in chapter 3 of Hyperfocus, Bailey writes that attention without intention is wasted energy, and that the most effective way to become more productive is to choose what you want to accomplish before you begin working. This is an example of in-text citation, right? This is citing or quoting word for word. Now, we also do this, like Lasana's great question, if we're paraphrasing, especially if it's a main idea that we read in a book, right? So in chapter 3 of Hyperfocus, author Chris Bailey argues that setting intentions is very important because it will allow people to become more productive and accomplish their most important goals. Here, I'm just paraphrasing, right?
Mhm.
This is not a word for word quote, but this is not my idea, right? Like this is definitely Bailey's idea. So I do need to include the page number, and this is in-text citation, paraphrase. Summarizing is going to be a little bit harder, right? Because I don't know how I could make this shorter. I mean, I guess you could, right? I guess I'd say this is kind of summarizing. It's even shorter, right? And the most important thing to understand, right, is that after all of these things, after all of these examples, if you put it word for word, if you paraphrase, or if you summarize, the most important thing is then after this quote, right, then you start to explain what this idea, why is this idea important, right? If it's a response, you connect it to your personal example. If it's a summary, you keep connecting to some of the other most important ideas that are in this section of the book, right? So again, you introduce the page number of the author, tell the reader, hey, this is not my idea. Hey, I understood the reading that we were supposed to do for class, you know? And then you give context, you give information for why it's important. And you guys have been doing that all semester long. I just want to make sure, right, that's what comes next, right? After you do this, regardless whether or not it's word for word, a paraphrase, or a summary. Does that help, Lesana?
Yeah, but
Tell me.
It means always summarizing, we don't have to give our opinion.
Yep.
It means everything is came from the test.
Yes.
I mean,
it's why academic writing is kind of boring sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
It is though. I talked to a couple students already who are like, I like narrative writing better. Of course, it's more interesting, right? Now, again, if you're not going to be an English major, or, you know, if you're going to take a computer science or anything, right? Like, these writing skills are important, but you won't have to do this type of writing in every class, right? Now, again, for people who want to do philosophy or history or something, then you'll have to write a lot, and summarizing is really important. But again, this academic skill of just reading something, understanding the facts, and then explaining the most important ideas in a summary, it's a lot of academic writing at US College. It really is. But like I said, wait for the final or the midterm, then you get to do a lot of response writing. What do you think? In your opinion, agree or disagree? Why? You will get to do that in other classes. But again, other science majors, my chemistry people, my nursing people, you know, you're in nursing, you know, what nurses mostly have to write kind of short. Well, I mean, if you think about what a nurse does at the end of a shift, you do sort of write a summary of what you saw for each patient, right? But that wasn't like from a book, you know, you spend 8 hours helping 20 patients, and then you write a paragraph, you know, today, Mr. Wilson, his temperature was normal. He went to the bathroom 3 times. You know, that's kind of a summary too, but that is a different skill than, you know, read this 300-page book and summarize chapter 4, you know. Those are different skills. Fraga, did I see a hand, or Fauzi, questions?
Yeah, I just would like to tell, I don't think it is boring. It is just different way of how to explain somebody's ideas. So in summary, we have just to explain what we understand according to quotations. In response, we have to give our understanding through our examples, personal examples, to how it applies in our private life. Yeah, and in the third one, in paraphrasing, is all about just telling how you understand. So you cannot quote, you just tell what you understand, reading a book or certain text.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Draga. I think, for example, for many ESL students, there's in the past, right? It's like a reading, it's a true or false quiz, you know, take some questions, answer some questions about the reading, true or false, multiple choice. I think that's very boring, in my opinion. So I do think read something and then write about it or talk about it, tell me what you understood. I do think that's more interesting than like a true or false quiz, you know. But I think, again, like I've just written, you know, if you have to write a dissertation or something like 300 pages, I mean, 100 pages might be a summary. You might have to read 200 articles and then synthesize and summarize them, you know, like it's not the most fun writing skill, in my opinion, but it is very important, right? It is very important. So you're right, Draga. Maybe some people love it, some people think it's boring, whatever. And different disciplines, different majors will have a different, you know, experience with it. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Anybody else before we look at the thing I want you to respond to in the final project? You know, I'm tired. I sat down, you guys, instead of standing up. What's going on? Okay. Let's look at it. So we'll kind of do what we did with lesson 19, which is let's make sure we really understand what you're being asked to do. So remember, before you can write an effective response, you've got to make sure you understand what you have to do, what your response should include. So here's the prompt. At the end of his book, Hyperfocus, Bailey argues that hyperfocus can allow people to, quote, get an extraordinary amount done in a short period of time, whereas scatter focus allows people to connect new ideas, increase creativity, and get better rest. He claims that using hyperfocus and scatter focus together will ultimately empower people to work and live with purpose. Do you agree or disagree with Bailey's argument? Use personal examples to support your response. In your examples, provide at least one example of hyperfocus and one example of scatter focus in your life. Then explain how these two skills work or do not work together to create purpose in your own life. So as you might imagine, this is a more complex, you know, thing. There's more ideas that we need to understand. So first, let's see, what are Bailey's ideas that I've included in this prompt? There's at least two, maybe three. Somebody give me one.
Scatter focus and hyperfocus.
What about them? That's a topic. That's not an idea. You're right, though. So now we just need to say, what about them? Anybody? You want to type in the chat?
That people accomplish a lot in a short period of time. Like,
Good. With which one, Asha?
let's say hyper focus.
Yes, I'm glad you said that is exact. That's what the quote says, right? Argues that hyperfocus can allow people to get an extraordinary amount done in a short period of time. Sort of clearly a paraphrase here, right? But again, I'm sort of taking notes on the prompt. So, okay, one idea, hyperfocus allows us to get a lot of stuff done in a little bit of time. Two, what about scatter focus? What's his idea about scatter focus here?
Helps people to be more creative, like put together main ideas and
what's the third one?
Get to rest.
Yep. Yeah, hard to paraphrase that one, but you did a great job, Asha.
Thanks.
And get more rest, yeah. And then, so I thank you, Asha, and thank you, Asha. So yeah, we've got, that's definitely is two ideas. So the first idea we need to understand and make sure that, okay, Jeff is saying agree or disagree with these main ideas. So Bailey says hyperfocus allows us to get a lot of stuff done in a little bit of time. Scatter focus helps us be more creative, put ideas together and get more rest. And then we do get another idea here before the agree or disagree, right? So what's this third idea here?
Using them together, and then that will empower us to work and live with purpose.
Yes. And notice this word purpose comes back here. So I'm just gonna right there's this is an idea. This is a key word here, right? This is an important word. Okay, so these are the ideas that I'm asking you to respond to, right? So then something like, okay, what should I do with these ideas? Well, one, you got to say if you agree or disagree, right? Let's make sure I read here. So do you agree or disagree with Bailey's argument? And then I say what? You need to use personal examples to support your response. And one example of hyperfocus, one example of scatter focus. Right, so in your examples, provide at least one example of hyperfocus and one example of scatter focus in your life. Then explain how these two skills work together to create purpose in your own life. So I'd say the third question here is kind of like answer. Right? This is kind of what we're doing here. This is what I'm asking you to do, right? This is our, again, like sort of critical thinking, critical reading. This is the takeaway. This is what you need to do to answer this question, right? Does that make sense? So we'll see, like maybe next week, I don't know what I want to do next week. I mean, maybe next week we could, we're not going to write one of these together, but we could sort of outline and brainstorm an outline or something for this. But I don't know. Well, you tell me, like what could I do to help you? Now we've got 20 minutes in this class. We've got one more class next week, right? To do whatever we want. And that's it, right? The final class is where I show you the final exam, the final activity, you know. So we've got like, you know, you've got me in Zoom for like 2.5 more hours. What do you need? How can I help? Or do you just need to do it?
I think it is the best. I think it is the best when you bring an example from somebody's work. Then when we go through it, and I think maybe three of them, all three of them, just to have them and analyze to see what's good, what's bad.
Yeah. I'm not going to bring an example of the academic project. So that I know I'm not going to do, but I can keep showing examples of summarizing. And, you know, last week we did paraphrasing. Today we did response writing. So I could bring another example next week. Draga is suggesting examples. Anybody else have things that they know will help them?
Professor, I think, I don't know, but in my case, so everyone has their own issues. For example, I have problem with summarize, someone has problem with like paraphrasing. I was thinking if it is possible for the next class for 10 minutes, give everyone to just share their problems and talk, everyone personally. I don't know because I don't have time, but it will be good that everyone just share their idea, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes for each student. I don't know, it will be good because.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I agree, that would be great. But it's so hard. It always takes more than 10 minutes. I mean, you know, we spend like 45 minutes with one essay in these examples. I know what you're saying, Fazia. I mean, like when we could meet in person and it wasn't just Zoom, I love to do what I would call that, Fazia, is writing conferences, right? So like everybody could come to class and be writing and working on their essay, and then I could go talk to every single student in the classroom. But it's really hard to do that in Zoom, you know? I'll think about it. I don't know if we can. I know what you're saying. Of course it makes sense. Of course it makes sense. But Zoom is really good for some stuff and really bad for other stuff, you know?
Yeah, because we practice about the paraphrase, summarize. Also, we practice about the summarize, your example that you wrote your example. So we practice.
We've done all three now. We've done all three now.
So for the next week, I was just thinking that everyone just, but let's see.
Maybe.
What is your idea?
We could try it, but the problem is even with 10 people, maybe right now we have 11 students, 10 minutes each. That's 110 minutes. That's an hour and 50 minutes. It's possible. It's tricky. It's hard. It just takes so much time. Time is always the challenge, you know, time is always the challenge. I'll think about it. I like it. I like it. If in a perfect world, Fauzi, I like it. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Writing conferences or sort of one-on-one work, or you guys could show your own examples to the class or something. I'll think about it. Yeah. Manisha.
Professor, so I don't know if you answered this question because I was praying when you talking about it. Regarding our finals, do we have to submit it and you're gonna check it for us, or are we just gonna submit it, that's it?
No, yeah, there's no time to revise this assignment. That's why you've got 3 weeks and why we're looking at so many examples.
No, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I said last week too, if people want to submit their essay, their final project early, for me to look at it on my own, again, it's always better to do it with you in person, but it's just, I feel like everybody's so stressed and tired at the end of the semester right now, and time is so precious. It's just really tricky. I could feel the crunch, right? Like, I mean, only 8 people have done the practice summaries, you know what I mean? Like, and now we're already doing the final project. So I understand it's the crunch, it's the time crunch. Okay, so Draga's saying more examples. Fauzi is saying some kind of one-on-one writing conference stuff could be helpful. Anybody else have ideas or things that I can do to help?
Professor, can we submit even though we didn't finish all 4 sections? Like we write just first 2, or we can do it?
Sure. And of course, if people submit early, I can't, you know, again, I can't spend 30 minutes with every version of the draft. There's just not enough hours in the day, but I can look at it and say, this is good, this is bad, fix this, you know, this is a B, or absolutely, Draga. Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Mhm. Cool. Well, if you do think about anything, you know I can do. But for now, I'll share my screen again, just so people see, right? Like, here's my outline, right? Here's my explanation of what you need to do for this section 4. So please, take a picture of this, watch this video. I will put the example student essays into Canvas for today, but I won't just copy and paste this. I mean, like, take a picture, write it down. I won't just serve it to you on a plate, I can't do everything. But I'll think about what the last thing to do for next week. And maybe even if I can't meet with students one-on-one, like Fauzia is suggesting, if you want to bring a specific idea or a specific example or a specific question, I would love that. I would love that. It's always best when it's your own personal examples, instead of just me deciding. So Fauzia, no matter what, if you've got something you want to look at, bring it to class. We could start there. So that's my idea for next week. But that's all I got for tonight. Unless people have questions, we can finish about 15 minutes early here. But do people have ideas or questions or anything else before we wrap it up? I think it's just time to do it. You know what I mean? I think it's just time to do it. And please know how much I respect and care about all of you. Just because I'm tired does not mean that my respect for all of you. I know what it's like at the end of the semester. So I think we're all doing great. I just think it's that time of the semester where it's kind of like it's time to just sit down and write. So. Anything I can do to help you, let me know. But that's what I think. That's what it feels like to me. So I will stop the recording here. If you're watching, I will see you later. And then I'll say goodbye to everybody who's here in the room with